Hey everybody, I'm Matt Weingarten, and I am proud to be a part of Data Team Summit 2023. It's going to be a lot of great breakout sessions and panels today featuring a lot of wonderful people in the data community, and I'm definitely proud to be a part of it. So let's dive right in. I wanted to talk about becoming a data engineering team leader, the career progression as a DE, and the differing responsibilities that come along with it. So to give some background on myself, I'm currently a data engineer at Disney. I've been here for the last year and a half now, and I'm focused on the streaming side of things. So Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, that's the type of data that I work on. Before I started at Disney, I was previously at Meta, where I was there for 1 year. And then before that, my first job out of school was at Nielsen, where I started as a software engineer before eventually converting into a data engineer. And I was there for 4 years. I'm currently based in Seattle, moved out here at the beginning of the towards the beginning of the pandemic when I started at Meta, not knowing, of course, that, 2.5 years later, we'd still be doing, virtual conferences and all of that. Previously, though, I am from Florida, from the Tampa area to be specific. So if there's anyone tuning in from those neck of the woods, a very happy welcome to you guys as well. In my free time, I like to spend my time biking along Seattle's numerous biking trails, just as a great way to stay in shape. And I'm a big sports fan. My favorite teams there in the lower left-hand corner, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not the best of seasons for us, but we'll see what the playoffs have in store. So you can definitely, after this talk, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to grow my network and just meet other like-minded people in the data community. I'm also a frequent poster on Medium. I've been maintaining a blog there for about the last 9 months or so, and it's gotten some really good reception so far. So looking to continue to do that and just hear what people are interested in. So enough about me. So let's talk about, career progression as a data engineer. And this, image right here is a very simple depiction of some type of staircase, but really as a data engineer, your career progression is more like an MC Escher staircase because it can go in so many winding, differing directions and paths that just a simple path like this doesn't do it justice. But if you want to think about it from its lowest level, you can start by just thinking of the actual, differing like job levels there are for data engineers, starting out at a junior level, then getting to a more mid-level, senior / team lead, which is kind of where I am now. And then the ultimate, top of that is something like being a principal or staff data engineer. So of course, you can also go into the management route, and that can get you even a little further along. You can get to a VP level by doing that. And now a lot of companies actually have their own head of data positions. Data is being viewed as new oil, if you've heard that analogy before. And as a result, companies are starting to see the importance and have specific positions just meant for handling the data side of things. And so that's a definitely growing role. And if you really want to shoot for the stars, then that's certainly a place that you can land in doing so. And then besides, just being strictly a data engineer, there's a bunch of different subdomains that are related that you can cross into as well. So for those who virtually attended the Coalesce conference a few months ago, DBT was talking about the importance of analytics engineering. For those who are in machine learning, there's now the machine learning engineering path. Data architects for those who want to be more on the infrastructure side of things, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, there's a lot of differing ways that you can go as a data engineer just by being in this type of field. Now, when should you make that switch? That's really just a personal decision. When you feel like you grow content with something, when you want to be more challenged and try something out, that's probably a good way. It's probably a good sign that it's time to make a change. But if you're happy with what you're doing, then why not? Then why try to move to something else and continue along what you're currently doing, at least. That's the way I think about it. So when it comes to being a team lead, we're going to break it down into two different parts. There's the technical side of things, and then there's the more human side of things, which is underrated and definitely needs to be talked about. So from the technical side of things, the first thing I want to mention is you're not going to be able to, be as heavy a developer as you were before. There's just not enough time at the end of the day. You have a lot more responsibilities on your plate. So you kind of have to take a step back and look at everything from a much bigger viewpoint. So one thing that you definitely have to do as a team lead is you have to be able to sell the product. Now, I'm not specifically talking about sales engineering, of course, but I'm focusing more on being able to, market what you have to all your data consumers. So, working with your consumers, understanding their use cases, seeing how that can fit within what you currently have, where there are gaps, noting that down as future priorities and things that you can attend to help support them. Those are the types of things you do. So in order to sell the product, there's a few different things that I do, for example. One is, we have a monthly office hours within our team where we kind of talk about, the differing the new business updates, technical updates on the initiatives that we're working on, production updates, what's the state of our data, and so on and so forth, just to clue some more people into what's going on if they're not necessarily following along with it on a day-to-day basis. We have our dedicated Slack support channel where people can ask questions at any time. We also, of course, post our bigger announcements in there on things that are going on, and so on and so forth. And then, for the bigger initiatives that deserve their own release and announcement emails, we, of course, do those as well. Now, on the actual project side of things, like I said, you don't really get into the development per se, but you definitely have a big role in looking at the overall design of what you're developing. So here's where you kind of want to make sure that things are conforming to a common set of practices and standards that you want to see fit throughout everything that you're doing. This is where you can see where not only is this built for what it's currently handling, but is it built to support the future as well? Because that's something we always have to think about as data engineers. This is a fast-moving industry. What's current now will not be current in a few months from now. So to be able to think in the future and make sure that everything's designed in that regard will go a long way. So this is kind of where you need to make sure that everything looks good from an architecture perspective, that, the code is following good practices as well. That's kind of like what your role is here. Now, something that I really enjoy doing is focusing more on POCs, just because I like to get my hands dirty whenever I can. So one POC that I'm working on right now, and I think a lot of people can relate to, is in the category of FinOps. We're trying to cut down on our cloud spend. So finding those areas where we can improve, making sure everything still holds up. That's something that I'm really passionate about, quite frankly, and I find a bit enjoyable as we continue to work on that. Another big POC that I've worked on in the past was actually migrating us from a different data platform onto Databricks, where we've been there for about a year or so now. So just, having to test out Databricks, making sure that it would hold for everything we were doing, helping migrate our different teams onto it. Those are some of the things that I've been involved in, and just making sure everything looked good. And then last but not least, a big responsibility of being a team lead is delegation. You can't attend to everything. This is where you have to make sure that you're putting the right people into the right places, putting them on projects that they want to work on, putting them on projects where their skills are a good match. That's kind of what you have to do here, just to make sure everything runs smoothly. And so to take a look at the image on the right, you can think of a team lead as kind of like that person in the red there who's navigating that group on that tightrope, which we can all relate to. That's definitely the way things go sometimes. And then everybody in the white is kind of just following along, and it's a whole team process in getting from point A to point B. Now, the human side of things, this you definitely can't forget about. And an important part that comes about this is one-on-ones. Now, some people will just view on one-on-ones as just yet another meeting on the calendar, something that you have to do. It's a formality, and you don't treat it the way it should be. But I've seen over time that one-on-ones go a long way. When I started out as a lower level data engineer, I kind of did have that mindset, but over time, I've definitely seen that one-on-ones are a great meeting. I still actually have one-on-ones with some people from previous companies just to talk to them. It's really been helpful for me to actually have that conversation and just keep people like that in my network. Now, when I talk about one-on-ones, one thing that is really a critical part of that is finding areas of improvement. And this isn't just necessarily from the person who's leading that conversation. It's a two-sided conversation, and a lot of people will have some good suggestions. One example that I can think of about this is, with our production processing, there are times when our data won't match for whatever reason, and then we'll have to do some reprocessing just so it conforms to what we would expect, and everybody has the correct data for any downstream processing that they're doing on top of it. In the past, we were definitely a bit unorganized with it. We would still own it, but we didn't necessarily have a good communication loop with that, and things were not necessarily done as efficiently as they were. But somebody suggested that we have like an incident tracker in place where we can start noting all these incidents, and things will get a lot more streamlined. And so after that meeting, I put together a spreadsheet, and we've been still using that spreadsheet months later, where we'll note down every incident, who's owning it, what was the root cause, what are the things that you've observed along the way, suggestions for the future, so on and so forth. We've shared this incident tracker with our stakeholders so that they're aware of everything as well. And it's definitely gone really well. And in that time, we've knocked out a lot more production incidents than we had in the past. We've also seen the open gaps in what we're doing in our processing, seeing what's happening the most so that we can best tackle that. And as a result, our system is in a much better spot now than it was a few months ago. And it just comes from suggestions like that really can help lead the team in the right direction. Honest feedback is a big part of one-on-ones. We're going to talk about performance reviews a little later on, but having that feedback in these conversations is important now, because nothing should ever be a surprise. When it is a surprise, it feels like a gut punch, and that's how you get a sense of distrust. You definitely don't want a sense of distrust within your team. That's where things start to break down. You want to make sure everything is a healthy conversation, and people, they should be able to take that feedback and work off of it. Constructive criticism, if it's approached the right way, isn't a bad thing. So you want to make sure that you're giving that when needed. And then last but not least, helping everybody grow. You always want to make sure that you can elevate everybody with around you. It does well for your team, and it does well for them as well. As a sports fan, there's some athletes that I can think of in this regard, people who are champions time and time again, like Tom Brady and LeBron James. If you look at the history of all the championships they've won, they don't necessarily have the best team around them, but what they do is that they bring out the best in everybody, and they make everybody play at a higher level. Now, of course, we're not gunning for championships as a data engineering team. We're just looking to be as successful as we can, but it's the same type of mindset that you need to bring in. Making sure that everybody can elevate and has an opportunity for growth is really important. Now, one important thing that helps a team grind along really well is recognition. At Disney, we have a kudos board where we each get a certain allotment of points each month, and we'll allocate those points to people based on how they best exemplify some of the certain company values. Then, of course, they can in turn use those points to redeem them for various prizes as well. But I always try to make sure that I do this every month. And I'm glad that a lot of other teammates do the same as well. I think having that recognition is good for morale. Morale can go a long way, as I'm sure we all know. So it's always good to be able to recognize people for the work that they do. Going back to Meta, we had something similar. We had like a thank spot where we would just, thank people for doing certain things. And then everybody in our like social feed would be able to see that as well, so that they could comment on it or learn from it if necessary. When we do our sprint reviews as a part of our, bi-weekly sprint process, when we go into the retrospective and we talk about what went well, this will be a time where I'll thank everybody for each of the different efforts that they worked on, no matter how big, no matter how small. I want to make sure people feel recognized for the work that they did, because in some way, shape, or form, it had a positive contribution to the team, most likely. And then another important part about recognition is finding opportunities from people. We get invited as team leads to a lot of different meetings, KT sessions, conferences, even occasionally. And we want to make sure that the people within our team are best recognized for that work as well. So if they're best in line to lead that presentation, have them do that while you just oversee it. If there's a conference that you feel that they could present at to help grow their skills, then you definitely want to get those opportunities for them as well. If people know that you're seeking out opportunities for them, they'll have a much more positive opinion of you. And that just leads to overall better morale, which will go a long way as we talk about this later from a team perspective. Now, we talked about performance reviews a little earlier, but I kind of want to give some tips for doing your own performance reviews as well. But going back to my first point, which was, leading performance reviews as a team lead, you know, nothing should ever be a surprise. You give that honest feedback to people in your one-on-one conversations, and then performance review is kind of just like a summarization of all of that. Another important point that comes along with this is helping people find the opportunities for grow. Like, what can they improve upon? What would be better? What could they tackle to grow as an engineer? Those are the types of things that you should be commenting on, because anybody should be able to take that, effectively and use that to fuel their growth. And that's hopefully the people you have within your team, and that just goes a very long way. Now, when it comes to doing your own performance reviews, I know we all groan when we think about this. It can be a very monotonous process. I remember at Meta how formal this could be sometimes, where people would spend hours or even days on end writing out these performance reviews, because that had a very big part in, of course, getting promoted to the next level or getting various performance incentives that come along with it. Now, some tips for performance reviews. The first one is always focus on impact. That's the word that rings the truest in everybody's ears. And the way that you can do this the best is by giving numbers wherever you can. Nobody's ever going to be able to have a bunch of good takeaways from words upon words of everything that you did. But if you can get to some, facts that you actually accomplished with that, that's a much more better summarization of it. Did your process save X amount of dollars by deprecating a legacy product, or just optimizing something that you already did? Does automating a process save Y amount of hours a month compared to doing the manual work in the past? Those are the takeaways that people will be able to remember. They won't be able to remember everything else that came along with it, but they'll take those facts and use that to drive their, review of you as in all your contributions. Next one is always focus on the company values. They exist there for a reason. They want to make sure that everybody's exemplifying that. So what I would actually do with this in the past is, for each of the bullet points that I wanted to touch on, I would list out all the company values under that. I would then jot down how I best exemplified that within that project. And then I would take that, remove the ones that really didn't make any sense or just weren't good fits. And then I would take everything else and then craft that into actually forming that paragraph. And then, that actually made my process a lot easier for writing those performance reviews. And then last but not least, mention that growth opportunity. It's always, people will always have a favorable opinion of you if you show that you're not content and you're always willing to grow. Find those opportunities for yourself to actually grow based on everything that you did. And then actually, on top of that, do it. Make, don't have those words there for the sake of it. Actually do find that growth, because it will elevate you into getting to further along in your career journey. So just to summarize this all, focus on the bigger picture. There's you just can't get involved in all the details as a team lead. There's just way too many things going on. It's time for you to take a step back and see everything from a higher level. Take that 10,000-foot view of everything that you do, and always look at it with through that type of lens. Always think about improvement. Your product now may look good, but as we all know, this is a fast-moving industry, and as a result, things will become outdated very quickly. Always think about how you can be improving upon something. Is there opportunities to save on cost or time, or do something in a better way that best supports it for the future? If you have the right people on your team, they'll be able to take away from that and want to do that as well. Always be thinking about that improvement, because it shows that you really care about what you're doing. Bring people out of their shell. I think a lot of us as engineers, we're a little shy by nature, but you always want to make sure that you can bring out that communication within everybody. One thing that I've actually done for this within our team is have kind of like a smaller, tight-knit KT series. At Disney, we do have regular KT series, some road shows and things like that, but it's not easy to get presentation opportunities at those, and not necessarily all those presentations actually are super relevant to us. So I created like a smaller internal series where, we all get, frequent opportunities to present. People feel a lot calmer about asking questions. And, I feel like this has gone really well. People are now actually engaged in these types of things, and having that communication in place just leads to a much smoother process than if it was just work, work, work. And then last but not least, culture means a lot more than you think. You can put a team of the best engineers together, but if they're just 100% dialed in on work and it's a lot more tense, then there's a limited ceiling that they can achieve. But if you have a team of just regular engineers, but they're having fun with what they're doing, they have positive morale because they're properly recognized, they have good one-on-one conversations where they know that they can find their opportunities from growth, and you're bringing out the best in them, the ceiling for that team is a lot higher. That's what you should be striving for within your team, because it'll just be so much better for what you guys are doing. So what's next for me? This is always a difficult question. They'll ask you, what do you want to do in like a year now, or even 5 years from now? And my honest response most of the time is, I don't even know what I want to do tomorrow necessarily. So, as we think about the staircase, I've gotten towards the top flight of stairs, being at the lead level. And of course, I definitely want to shoot for being a staff or principal engineer in my lifetime. I'm really passionate about data engineering. That's why I'm proud to be a part of Data Team Summit today, because my work, my interest in this does not just stop at work. I'm someone who reads in my free time. That's why LinkedIn and Medium are great for things like this. And so that candle hasn't burnt out yet. And that's why I like continuing to do what I do. Now, when that does, I'll probably cross into something else. At some point, I'm sure I'll have to slap the, manager, label on my title so that I can start to pursue that field of opportunities. Or maybe I just pivot into one of the subdomains. I'm always interested in infrastructure. Of course, I come from a software engineering background, so this was just a little more natural with that. So maybe data architect makes the most sense. Or maybe even though I'm not the most knowledgeable about machine learning, I've always found it to be super interesting, because it already plays a very big role in what we do, and that's just going to continue to grow. So maybe I pivot into machine learning engineering. Who really knows? I don't even know myself, but when that opportunity comes and I feel like I've grown content and I want a different challenge, that's when I know it'll be time to switch, and then I'll definitely go down that line and see where it goes for me. So I wanted to thank everybody again for attending this talk. There will be a bunch more that are great here at the Data Team Summit. Definitely stay tuned for those. For those who would like to connect with me afterwards, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and Medium. Happy to grow my network and just to hear from like-minded people in the industry. But until then, I'm Matt Weingarten, and thank you guys so much. Have a good one.